It was 3:33 in the morning. The office should have been empty. Everyone else had gone home. Only one investigator remained. His name was Yusuf El-Nagar, and he was about to make the worst mistake of his life. At the time, he didn't know it. He thought it was just another file, just another forgotten account, just another routine investigation. The account had already survived 3 deletion attempts. That was unusual, but not impossible. Dayshippers fail, records become corrupted, systems break. Yet something felt wrong. The first deletion failed, the second deletion failed, the third deletion failed. Every attempt produced the same message: unable to close file. Yusuf stared at the screen. The wording bothered him. Not unable to delete account. Not database error. Not access denied. Unable to close file. As if something inside the file refused to leave. At first he laughed, the way people laugh when they feel uncomfortable. The way people laugh when they suddenly realize they are alone. Then he opened the account, and everything changed. The profile looked ordinary. A username. A profile picture. Several games. Nothing remarkable. Nothing memorable, nothing that should have attracted attention. Yet something had caused the archive system to reject the file 3 separate times. Something had convinced Yusuf to stay long after everyone else had gone home. Something had made him keep looking. He stared at the achievement count again. 666. The number itself didn't bother him. Numbers were meaningless. People gave them meaning. People feared them. People created stories about them. Yusuf wasn't interested in stories. He was interested in facts. So he opened the achievement history, then another page, then another, then another. Minutes became hours. The account owner had played dozens of games, hundreds of achievements, thousands of hours. But a strange pattern slowly began to emerge. Many of the achievements shared similar themes: doors, gates, shadows, dreams, voices, falling, returning. At first it seems insignificant, the kind of connection people create when they stare at data for too long. But the deeper he looked, the harder it became to ignore. The same ideas kept appearing, again and again and again. Different games, different developers, different years, yet somehow the same themes continued to surface. Yusuf leaned back in his chair. For the first time that night, he stopped looking at the screen. Instead, he stared into the darkness of the empty office, trying to understand why he felt uncomfortable. The evidence wasn't frightening. The account wasn't threatening. Nothing bad had happened, and yet something felt wrong. A feeling he couldn't explain, a feeling he couldn't justify, a feeling he couldn't ignore. He looked back at the screen. 666. The owner had stopped there, exactly there. No more, no less. The account had never crossed beyond that number, not once. That was the detail that bothered him, not the number itself, the decision. Someone had reached that point and stopped, deliberately, as if the number had been the destination, as if reaching it had completed something. The thought stayed with him, long after he should have gone home, long after he should have closed the file, long after he should have stopped asking questions, because somewhere deep inside his mind, a new question had begun to form. If 666 was the destination, then what exactly had the owner been trying to reach? Around 4:15 in the morning, Yusuf opened the profile picture. At first, there was nothing unusual. Just a man looking directly into the camera. A normal photograph, a normal face, a normal expression. Nothing remarkable, nothing frightening, nothing worth remembering. Still, something kept pulling his attention back to it, so he adjusted the brightness. Nothing changed. He adjusted the contrast. Still nothing. Then he enhanced the shadows, and that's when he saw it. Something standing behind the man far back in the darkness. A shape, tall, thin,
motionless, watching. Yusuf frowned. He assumed it was an artifact, the kind of visual distortion that sometimes appears when software tries to recover hidden image data. It wasn't unusual, at least not at first. He ran the enhancements again. The shape remained. He tried a different tool. The shape remained. A third. The shape remained. A fourth. Still there. A fifth. Still there. Now he was paying attention. Not because he believed in ghosts, not because he believed in monsters, because computers do not usually make the same mistake 5 times. Yusuf zoomed in. The imagery began to fall apart. Pixels broke apart. Details vanished. The photohov became distorted. Yet somehow the figure became clearer, not less visible, more visible. That should not have happened. He leaned closer to the monitor. The shape appeared almost human, almost. Its proportion felt wrong. Its arms seemed too long. Its posture felt unnatural. The longer he looked and the more difficult it became to describe, almost as if his brain refused to process what he was seeing. Then he noticed something else, something much worse. The archive system contained older backups of the profile picture. Versions saved years apart. Yusuf opened the oldest copy. The figure was there, but farther away, much farther away. He opened a newer version. The figure was closer. He opened another, closer, another, closer, another, closer. For several seconds, Yusuf simply stared at the screen, his mind searching desperately for an explanation. There had to be one. Images don't change themselves. Archive backups don't rewrite history. Yet the evidence was sitting directly in front of him, year after year, version after version. The figure was moving, not within the image, between the images, across time, approaching the camera one step at a time, approaching the man, approaching whoever happened to be looking. For the first time that night, Yusuf felt genuinely uneasy. Not afraid, not yet, but uneasy. The kind of feeling that appears just before fear. The kind of feeling that tells you something is wrong, very wrong. Then something caught his eye, a detail he hadn't noticed before. Near the edge of the photograph, almost hidden inside the darkness, a second shape, smaller, barely visible, standing behind the first. And when he opened the next archive version, there was a third. Yusuf sat motionless. The office suddenly felt much colder, because the figures weren't just getting closer, their numbers were growing. And for the first time, he found himself wondering whether the thing in the picture had always been watching, or whether it had only noticed him after he started looking.
For several minutes, Yusuf simply sat there, staring at the screen, staring at the figures, trying to convince himself there was a logical explanation, trying to convince himself that exhaustion was affecting his judgment. He had been awake for hours. The office was empty. The building was silent. Anyone could make mistakes under those conditions. That explanation made sense. The alternatives did not. So he continued searching. The profile picture remained unchanged. The man still stared toward the camera. The dark figure still stood behind him, watching, waiting, silent. Nothing moved. Nothing happened. Slowly, the tension began to fade. Yusuf leaned back in his chair, rubbed his eyes, took a deep breath, and for the first time in nearly an hour, looked away from the screen. Then something appeared, a notification, small, simple, easy to miss. Yusuf frowned. The account was inactive. There should not have been any activity. No messages, no comments, no updates, nothing. Yet there it was, a notification. He clicked it. One sentence appeared. 6 words, do not look behind him. Yusuf stared at the message, his expression slowly changing. Not because of what it said, because of how it appeared. There was no sender, no taste by, no account name, nothing. Just 6 words floating on the screen. He checked the logs, nothing. He checked the message history, nothing. He checked the message history, nothing. He checked account activity, nothing. The message existed, yet there was no evidence it had ever been sent. For several seconds, he simply stared, his mind searching for explanations, a bug, corrupted data, a display error, anything. Then a thought entered his mind, a thought he immediately regretted. What if the message wasn't talking about the man in the picture? The office suddenly felt much quieter. Yusuf looked back at the profile image. The man remained motionless. The dark figures remained behind him, watching, waiting, silent. Then he noticed something else, something new, something that definitely had not been there before. The account status, offline. A moment later, online, then offline again, then online, again, and again, and again. The profile was reconnecting, over and over, like a heartbeat, like breathing. Yusuf watched without moving. The status continued changing, offline, online, 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 online. Then suddenly it stopped. The account was online.
The account was online. Yusuf checked the clock. 4:27 in the morning. The building was nearly empty. Most of the city was asleep. And somehow, the abandoned account was online. For several moments he simply stared, waiting for the status to change again. waiting for it to disappear, waiting for reality to correct itself. It didn't. The green indicator remained. The account was active, alive, rolling, watching. A chill moved through him, not fear, not yet. Something smaller, something colder, the feeling that he was no longer alone. Yusef opened the profile. Nothing unusual, no new activity, no new achievements, no messages, no comments. Everything looked exactly the same. Then he clicked the friend list. The page refreshed. For a second it appeared empty. Then a name appeared. One name, only one. Yusef leaned closer, his heartbeat beginning to rise. The name looked familiar, painfully familiar, because it belonged to him. His account, his profile picture, his username, his name, staring back at him from the friend list. For several seconds he didn't move. He simply stared, trying to understand what he was seeing, trying to find an explanation. There wasn't one. He had never added the account, never interacted with it, never even known it existed before tonight. Yet somehow, it knew him. Yusef immediately opened his own profile. Everything appeared normal. At first, then he noticed a notification. Recent profile visitor. Unknown user. Time of visit, 3:33 in the morning.
Yusef felt his stomach tighten. At 3:33, he had been asleep. He knew he had been asleep. He remembered going to bed. He remembered setting his alarm. He remembered falling asleep. And yet, according to the system log, someone had visited his profile. Someone or something. The office suddenly felt different. The darkness between the desks seemed deeper. The empty workstations no longer felt empty. Every shadow felt occupied. Every corner felt watched. Yusef pushed his chair back slightly, listening. The building remained silent. No footsteps, no voices, no movement. Then he heard it, a sound, soft, metallic. Somewhere behind him, a drawer closing or perhaps a cabinet. The noise lasted less than a second. Then silence returned. Yusef turned. The office was empty. Rows of desks, rows of monitors, rows of shadows, nothing else. He laughed quietly. The kind of laugh people make when they are nervous. The kind of laugh people make when they know something is wrong. Then the monitor flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. The profile disappeared. The friend list disappeared. Everything disappeared. The screen became completely black. Then a blinking cursor appeared, waiting, patient, as if someone was preparing to type. Letter by letter, a sentence appeared. Have you looked behind you yet? For the first time that night, Yusef became afraid. Yusef stared at the message. Have you looked behind you yet? For several seconds he didn't move. His eyes remained fixed on the screen. His hands remained frozen above the keyboard. The office was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that feels unnatural. The kind of silence that makes you aware of every breath, every heartbeat, every sound your body makes. Yusef swallowed, trying to ignore the feeling growing in his chest, trying to ignore the thought that had entered his mind. The thought that something might actually be standing behind. It was ridiculous. Impossible. Childish. He knew that. Yet the feeling remained, growing stronger. The message remained on the screen, unchanging, waiting, as though expecting a response. Slowly, Yusef moved the mouse. The cursor crossed the monitor. Nothing happened. The message remained. He clicked. Nothing happened. He refreshed the page. Nothing happened. The message remained exactly where it was. The same words. The same question. Have you looked behind you yet? A cold sensation crawled across the back of his neck. His breathing became slower, more careful, as if he was afraid of making noise, afraid of attracting attention. Then another thought occurred to him. What if the message had not appeared for him? What if it appeared for everyone? What if someone else had seen it before? Immediately he began searching the archive. Old reports, old tickets, old investigations, anything connected to the account. Minutes passed. Then he found something. A report, several years old, written by an investigator whose name had later been removed from company records. The report contained only 3 sentences. The account is active. The account is aware. Do not turn around. Yusef read the sentences again. Then again. Then again.
A strange feeling settled in his stomach, because the report was dated years before tonight. Years before he ever opened the file. Years before he knew the account existed. And yet somehow, the warning felt personal, as though it had been written specifically for him. Then he heard it. A sound. Not behind him, not in front of him, above him. A single soft click. Yusuf slowly looked toward the ceiling. The fluorescent light above his desk flickered once, then stopped. The office returned to silence. But now he knew something. He was no longer alone.
Yusuf did not turn around. For several seconds he remained frozen in his chair, listening, waiting. The office remained silent. Eventually the feeling passed, or at least wrote you it became easier to ignore. The message still glowed on the screen. Have you looked behind you yet? Yusuf closed the window. Then he opened the archive. He needed answers, not fear. Answers. Someone had investigated this account before him. The report proved that. The warning proved that. The question was simple: who? He began searching company records, old investigations, archived tickets, internal reports, anything connected to the account. The search returned dozens of results. Most were incomplete. Some had been deleted, others were heavily redacted, but one name appeared more often than the others. Michael Ward, senior digital investigator. Assigned to the account several years earlier. Yusuf opened the personnel file, access denied. He frowned. That wasn't unusual. Some records were restricted, so he tried another route. Employee directed, no results. Internal messaging system, no results. Payroll records, no results. It was as if Michael Ward had never worked there, yet his name appeared inside the investigation, again, and again, and again. Yusuf opened another archive report. The author field was blank. The report itself contained only a few lines. The account is active. The account is aware. Do not turn around. Yusuf's eyes narrowed. At the bottom of the report was a T-spine. The report had been created by Michael Ward, the same employee who officially did not exist. Something cold settled in his chest, because now he had a new problem. The account wasn't the only thing being hidden. Someone was removing people, not files, people. Yusuf continued searching. Hours passed. Then he found something, a security photograph, taken inside the building years earlier. The image showed a group of investigators standing together. There were 6 people in the picture. 5 were identified. The 6th face was unlabeled. Yusuf stared at the image, then opened the old report, then looked back at the photograph. The unlabeled man matched the employee badge from another file. Michael Ward, he had existed. Someone had simply removed his name. Then Yusuf noticed something else, something much worse. The date. The photograph had been taken 3 years before Michael Ward's investigation. 3 years before he was assigned to the account. 3 years before he should have been involved at all. Yet there he was, standing in the picture, watching the camera, as if he already knew, as if he had already seen what was coming. And when Yusuf zoomed into the image, his blood ran cold, because standing in the background, far behind the investigator, was a tall, dark figure, watching them all. Yusuf stared at the photograph. For several seconds he forgot to breathe. The dark figure stood far behind the investigators, barely visible, almost hidden within the background. Yet now that he had seen it, he could not unsee it. The shape was unmistakable. Tall, thin, motionless, watching. The same figure from the profile picture, the same figure from the archived images, the same impossible silhouette. Yusuf immediately searched for more photographs. Old employee graves, company FNs, training sessions, security archives, anything. At first he found nothing. Then he found one, a retirement party held years earlier. Dozens of employees, smiling faces, cake, balloons, celebration. And in the far corner of the room, the figure, watching. Yusuf opened another image, then another, then another. His heartbeat growing faster with each photograph. The figure was always there, not in front, never always distant, always hidden, always watching. Years passed between the photographs. Different buildings, different people, different evidence, yet somehow the figure appeared in all of them. The same height,
The same shape, the same posture, the same silence. By sunrise, Yusuf had collected more than 40 photographs, 40 different images, 40 different years, 40 different moments, and the figure appeared in every single one. The discovery should have been impossible. Instead, it became worse, much worse, because Yusuf eventually noticed something else, something he wished he had never seen. The figure was getting closer, not much, not enough for anyone else to notice, but enough. In the oldest photographs, it stood near the horizon, almost invisible. Years later, it stood closer, then closer, then closer, as if it were approaching. Not the camera, not the building, not the people, the investigation. Every photograph connected to the account became part of a timeline, a trail, a path, and the figure was walking it, one step at a time, towards something, towards someone, toward a destination.
Toward a destination. Yusuf stopped looking at the screen. His reflection stared back at him from the dark monitor. Exhausted, pale, uneasy. Then his eyes moved, not to the reflection, to the darkness behind it. For a brief moment, he thought he saw movement. He spun around. Nothing. The office remained empty. Rows of desks, rows of screens, rows of shadows, no figure, no movement, no sound. Still, his pulse refused to slow. He returned to the photographs and found one final image, a security camera frame, poor wife, black and white, taken late at night. Almost everyone had already left. Only one investigator remained, sitting alone at a desk, working. The taste part caught Yusuf's attention immediately. The image had been taken only days before Michael Ward disappeared. Yusuf zoomed in. The investigator was Michael. Alive, focused, looking at a monitor. The account was open on his screen. Yusuf zoomed in further. The grainy image began to fall apart, but one detail remained visible. Michael wasn't alone. Someone was standing directly behind him, close enough to touch him, close enough to whisper into his ear. The dark figure, no longer hidden, no longer distant, no longer watching from afar. It had finally reached him. For a long time, Yusuf sat motionless. Then he noticed something that nearly stopped his heart. The security image contained a reflection from Michael's monitor, a reflection showing part of the office behind him, and inside that reflection, standing much farther back, was another dark figure. Watching the first, Yusuf stared, unable to look away. Because for the first time since opening the file, a new possibility tendered his mind. What if there was more than one? What if the thing following the investigation was itself being watched? Yusuf stared at the photograph. The second figure remained visible in the reflection. Watching the first, watching Michael, watching everything. For several minutes, he simply sat in silence, trying to understand what he had found, trying to understand what it meant. Then he noticed something attached to the archive, a file hidden beneath dozens of outdated records, a file that had never appeared during previous searches. The name was simple, Audio Log 7. Record by Michael Ward. Yusuf felt his pulse quicken. This was the first direct evidence he had found. The first thing left behind by someone who had investigated the account before him. He opened the file. Static filled the speakers. Several seconds passed. Then a voice emerged. Tired, nervous, barely controlled. Michael. The recording began. If anyone finds this route, stop. Delete the file. Forget the account. Forget everything. For a moment, the recording went silent. Then Michael continued. I thought it was following the account. I was wrong. I thought it was following the investigators. I was wrong about that too. Yusuf leaned closer, listening carefully. The voice sounded terrified, not frightened, terrified. The kind of fear that leaves permanent damage. Michael continued. It isn't following the account. The account is following it. The office suddenly felt colder. Yusuf replayed the sentence, then replayed it again. The account is following it, not the other way around. Michael took a shaky breath, then continued speaking. The account records appearances,
The account tracks movement. The account measures distance. It's not a destination, it's a warning system. Yusef froze for the first time since opening the file. He felt genuine fear, because suddenly everything looked different. The photographs, the reports, the achievement count, the messages, all of it. What if none of it was the threat? What if it was trying to track the threat? Michael's voice returned, quieter now, more unstable. I finally understand what the number means. I know what 666 represents, and I know what happens when the count reaches the next number. The recording stopped. Silence filled the office. No explanation, no answer, no continuation. The file simply ended. Yusef stared at the screen, unable to move, because for the first time, the mystery had become much larger and much worse. The account was not the monster. The account was afraid of something. Yusef.
Michael's recording ended. The office fell silent. For several moments, Yusef simply stared at the screen. The account remained open. The achievement count remained unchanged. 666. The same number, the same mystery, the same obsession. For years, every investigator had focused on it. The reports focused on it. The photographs focused on it. Michael focused on it. Yusef focused on it. Everyone had. And suddenly that realization began to bother him, because whenever everyone looks in one direction, they rarely notice what is standing beside it. Yusef reopened the profile, slowly reviewing every detail again. Not the achievements, not the screenshots, not the comments, everything, every field, every statistic, every forgotten corner of the account. Hours passed, then he saw it, a detail so small he almost missed it. One permanent ban. Yusef frowned. The account had only one disreplay reaction, one mark, one violation, just one, and nobody had ever mentioned it, not once, not in any report, not in any investigation, not even Michael's. The achievement count filled entire files. The ban received a single line. Yusef opened it.
The record was old. Older than most activity on the account. Older than many archive screenshots, almost as old as the account itself. His pulse quickened. The reason field was corrupted. Most of the text was unreadable. Fragments remained, broken pieces, missing words, deleted records, yet one line survived: reason. Refusal of directive. Yusef stared at the screen, reading it again. Refusal. The simplicity disturbed him more than any threat could have, because it felt ancient. A command given, a command rejected. Everything else came afterward. Yusef searched deeper. The moderator account responsible for the ban no longer existed. Deleted, erased, gone. No name, no profile, no eatery, only the punishment remained. The command was gone, the authority was gone, the refusal remained. Then a memory returned. Michael's recording. Everyone focus on the number. Nobody looks at the ban. Yusef froze. The line suddenly made sense. The 666 wasn't the beginning. It was the distraction. The ban came first. The refusal came first. Everything else followed. The achievements, the figures, the disappearances, the messages, the investigation, all of it. Then Yusef noticed the date. He compared it to the creation date of the account, then compared it again and again, unable to believe what he was seeing. The ban was older. Older than the account itself, older than the first login, older than every record connected to the profile. For several seconds his mind refused to process the implication. The account had not been punished after it was created. The punishment existed before the account did. As if the account had been built around the ban, as if the refusal was the first thing that existed, and everything else came later. The punishment existed before the account. The realization refused to leave Yusef's mind. Every report, every photograph, every disappears, every warning, every message, every piece of evidence pointed toward the same conclusion. The account was never the beginning. The number was never the beginning. Even the figure was not the beginning. Something older existed beneath all of it. Something hidden. Something everyone had overlooked. The ignored command. For years, investigators studied the symptoms. The number.
The photographs. The disappearances. Nobody studied the cause. A warning given. A warning ignored. Everything else followed. The account was not obsessed with 666. The account was obsessed with repetition. The same pattern. Again. And again. And again. Warnings ignored, instructions rejected, doors open. People vanished. The cycle continued. For hours, Yusuf searched through Michael's remaining files. Most were corrupted. Some had been erased. Others appeared intentionally damaged. Then he found a fragment, a note hidden inside an unrelated archive. Only a few lines survived. The first mistake was believing the number mattered. The second mistake was believing it happened only once. Yusuf stared at the sentence, the meaning slowly settling into place. History remembers consequences. History forgets power. The account wasn't recording a single event. It was recording echoes, repeating echoes. The same decision, the same mistake, the same outcome. Across years, across generations, across people who had never met. Then another recovered note appeared. The first act was not important because of who made it. The first act was important because others repeated it. Yusuf leaned back in his chair. For the first time since opening the file, he stopped searching for answers. Instead, he searched for the question, the real question, not what the figure was, not who owned the account, not why the number existed, why the warnings kept appearing. Do not look behind him. Do not turn around. Stop searching. Leave the file alone. The warnings were everywhere, and nobody listened, including him. The monitor flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. The account remained open. Achievement count, 666. 1 disbelieving action. Status, pending. The word no longer felt a mystery. It felt alive, waiting. Patient, unfinished, as though something expected a response, as though the investigation itself had been asking a question, one that nobody had answered. For a long time, Yusuf sat motionless, listening to the hum of the office, listening to the silence between sounds. Then slowly he looked toward the darkness beyond the monitor, toward the empty rows of desks, toward the shadows. And for the first time since opening the file, he understood what frightened Michael. The investigation had never been searching for the account. The account had been searching for the investigation. Searching, waiting, watching for someone willing to answer. The cursor blinked, patiently waiting. And somewhere within the darkness of an abandoned archive, something continued waiting too.
Case File 3009. Archive Review Request Received. Opening Record. Account Status. Active Achievement Count 666. 1 Disciplinary Action Detective. Opening Record. Reason. The instruction was ignored. Status pending. Final deletion request detective. Attempt number 666. Processing. Status pending.